Peter Valley, FBAmaster.com here. And in this video, I'm going to talk about something that is very, very sensitive. And it's sensitive because confronting people with the negative consequences of their addictions is always sensitive. I'm going to talk about scanning app triggers. These are features in apps like ScoutIQ and Scoutly that the argument I'm going to make here is basically these are ruinous to your business. Now, the argument I'm going to make in this video is that app triggers are costing you money in both the short term and the long term. So if you can bear with me, this is going to be uncomfortable for those of you who've been weaned on triggers and never known an Amazon selling life outside of triggers. I promise you, if you can accept the basis of what I'm about to say, this will make you a massive amount of money, because I can tell you right now, these triggers are costing you money. By the way, I'm coming at you from my mom's house. I just want you to know I would never decorate a room like this. I just want to get that out of the way. Totally irrelevant, but I had to mention it. Okay, let's move on. Here's what we're going to cover in this video. In part 1, why the scanning app trigger epidemic must be stopped at all costs. Part 2, how to read scanning app data without using your triggers. Don't worry, this is not difficult. Number 3, the 4 reasons you should stop using triggers immediately. And the last 2 are extremely important. In fact, they're so important, I don't feel like I should just dangle them on like a carrot on a stick in front of you and make you wait till the end. I'm going to give you the top 2 right now, and I'm going to expand on them as this video goes on. So number 1, scanning app triggers are costing you money in the short term. And the reason is something called the FBA blind spot. Now, maybe you've heard me talk about this in other videos and articles I've written. The FBA blind spot is a limitation imposed on third-party software where Amazon will not reveal a significant percentage, like a massive percentage of FBA offers. It just simply will not share them with third-party data. So what that means is if you're using triggers on these apps, this FBA column will show blank, and your app will be telling you to reject something when in fact there actually are competing FBA offers, and that item would actually be profitable for you. But because the app can't see the FBA offers, because Amazon won't share those offers with the app thinks you must reject the item. The app thinks the item's not profitable when in fact it is profitable. The implications of this to your bottom line are massive. And what's crazy is very few sellers even know this blind spot exists, let alone how much money it's costing them. I'm gonna expand on that here in just a second. Number 2, triggers are costing you money in the long term, specifically by causing you to become what I call a trigger zombie. These are low IQ Amazon sellers who can't read actual data. I don't mean low IQ like literally. I mean low business IQ, who literally cannot read scanning app data because all they've known is the use of triggers and just outsourcing all the analysis to their apps. So triggers allow sellers to literally spend years in the business and know nothing about it, which is insane. Not being able to read scanning app data. I'm going to show you some horror story screenshots here in a second that I plugged from Facebook groups of actual sellers who don't know how to use scanning apps without using triggers and are absolutely, utterly clueless about how to read scanning app data. You simply cannot advance in this business if you don't know how to read scanning app data. So the basic crux of my argument here, if I had to put it like into one sentence, is that triggers offer a solution to one problem, and I say solution in quotes, at the expense of causing numerous other much bigger problems. Okay, so if you don't know, what are triggers? Okay, so this is a feature in, I've only used Scoutly and ScoutIQ, so I don't know about other apps. It might be a feature in many other apps, but definitely Scoutly and ScoutIQ, which are probably the 2 biggest ones. These are features that basically translate data on the screen into 1 of 2 categories, either buy or reject. So you basically tell the app, you say, hey, if these criteria apply, tell me to buy it. If these criteria don't apply, then tell me to reject it. And then all you have to do is just scan an item and it'll just say buy or reject. And so what happens is sellers set these triggers and then they just completely shut off their brain and outsource all the analysis to the app, and they just simply scan an item, and if it tells them to buy, they buy it. If it tells them to pass, they pass on it. But it's important to understand that all triggers do is translate the data. And that's data that is already on the screen. They're not doing anything magical here. They're just taking the data that's on the screen and translate it into a binary decision, either buy or reject. Now, when I say they translate the data that's on the screen, that's what they purport to do. In reality, that's actually an illusion, as I'll explain here in a second. So it's kind of interesting when you talk to sellers who only use triggers and don't know how to read app data. When you talk to them about actually learning how to read app data, they kind of respond in 1 of 2 ways. Number 1, they look at reading app data as though it's some sort of like crazy, weird Jedi advanced skill, even though we're just talking about numbers, right? That they think it's like this totally out there thing. Or number 2, they look at it as this kind of like quaint, sort of antiquated relic of the past that only these like folksy artisan sellers bother with. It's very interesting. They don't understand there's actually a practical profit-driven reason to only interpret app data yourself and not outsource it to an app. When the reality, as I said, both of these things are completely false. The reasons to not use app triggers are entirely profit-driven. Now, I'm going to get into the 4 reasons that not relying on triggers will make you more money, and I'm going to tell you in a second here how to read scanning app data in a way that I can explain in like under 30 seconds. But before we do that, I got to get this out of the way. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the link below. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you don't miss a single thing. You can build an entire business off of what I give away for free on this YouTube channel. But you've got to subscribe, hitting the button below. And perhaps more importantly, head over to the website, fbamastery.com. Get on my email list over there. You can get all the free stuff you see here, free web classes, free reports at fbamastery.com. And I got to mention, I have a much more in-depth version of this video in article form at fbamastery.com. And I'm just able to get into a lot more detail over there than I can in this video. I have to keep this thing like under, 15 or 20 minutes. So head over to fbamaster.com. Link is below this video to read the article version. Okay, what do you say I go into how to read app data and make triggers completely obsolete? And I mean in the simplest possible way. I'm gonna simplify this in a way that's actually borderline irresponsible. How simple I'm gonna make this, okay? If you're sitting back and you're like, all right, Peter Valley, if I didn't use triggers, I would have to spend 30 seconds with my eyes darting all over the scanning app, all over the screen, trying to look at this key data and analyze it myself. And I'm here to tell you that's not how it works at all. In fact, my eyes usually only dart around the app to 3 different places. So what I'm about to describe here, when like I said, stop number 1 here, what I'm referring to is the places my eyes stop on the screen. And for 90+% of the time, I only stop 3 places, and I can do all of this in literally under a second. Probably, there's a way to actually time this, probably under half a second, okay? And this doesn't take that much time to learn, but man, will it make you money. Okay, stop number 1, where my eyes go on the screen when I scan an item, is the merch fulfilled price. I want to know, what is the lowest merch fulfilled offer? Because even though I'm an FBA seller, if I see a price in that column that I can make money at, even if I sold at FBA, then I know this is a home run, because the FBA offer in most instances is only going to be higher than the merch fulfilled offer. But I know if it's profitable merch fulfilled, I know it's probably going to be even more profitable FBA. That's my first stop, right? It takes 1/10 of 1 second. Stop number 2, I let my eyes drift upward to the average sales rank. I want to know how often this item is selling. That is going to heavily define how I price this item. If I see the average sales rank is better than roughly 1.2 million, then I go on to step number 3, which is the FBA column. If it's less than 1.2 million, again, rough figures here, I'm probably just going to match the lowest merch fulfilled price. So I already know everything I need to know, and I already know whether I'm going to buy this item or not. And when I use this rank numbers, I'm referring specifically to books here. It's going to be different, obviously, for every category. But let's say the average rank is under 1.2 million and it's a book. Then my eyes are going to drift over to the FBA column. I want to know what is the lowest FBA price, or perhaps second or third lowest, depending on how high demand this item is. And you guys, I'm not kidding. That is it. And you can size that up in under 1 second. Now, this is a huge oversimplification. I want to be clear about that. There are many examples where I need to do even a little bit more research, but what I'm able to do, but just these 3 steps I've outlined make triggers completely obsolete. And they actually position you in a way that you can actually analyze even better than an app can for the FBA blind spot reasons and reasons I'll get into here in a second. But that's it. This is not hard. This is not Jedi science. This is really, really simple. Okay, you guys ready for the scared straight part of this video? This is where I'm going to show you what happens to Amazon sellers who have only used triggers and don't know how to read scanning app data. Brace yourself. This is a little bit unnerving. Now, I want to be clear. What I'm about to show you are screenshots from Facebook groups. It took me literally under a minute, probably like 30 seconds, to come up with these few examples I'm going to show you here. I just typed in the word like reject and a couple keywords, just brought these up. I didn't spend much time on this at all. So if you really started to dig, you would get even crazier examples than this. You ready? Now this first one's not that great because this person's new, as they say here in the Facebook post, but they say, hey, I'm going to be a pain here because I'm new. I scanned a couple books that said accept/buy. How are these and would I profit anything? So what you have here is a seller that doesn't know, and they're new, so okay, fine. But again, because they've been weaned on these triggers, they literally don't know how to read the numbers that are directly in front of them. It's like hieroglyphics to sellers that have never known anything other than triggers. All they know is this binary buy or reject. And if they're forced to think in any way outside those two things, they completely freeze up. And again, this seller's new, so we'll cut her some slack here, but look at this one. This person says, hi, I picked up a free book and it's selling on Amazon for over $100. I scanned with ScoutIQ and it says $87 profit. Can someone explain why it says reject? Is it because of the high bestseller rank? You guys, here's the thing about triggers. They only do what you tell them to do. They don't do anything else. So if a trigger says reject, it's because you told it to say that, or because you just left the triggers in their default setting, which is a even bigger problem, because it means you don't even have any buying criteria yourself and you're just completely outsourcing literally everything, your entire business, to an app, which is like insane, right? But again, sellers who are addicted to triggers never learn this business. You can literally have zero idea. It's like Latin. Like they're looking at the numbers here on the screen and they have zero idea what they mean. Zero idea what a sales rank of 11 million translates to in terms of sales. Zero idea what anything in these columns means. They have no idea. All they know is reject or buy. This is your brain on triggers and it is not pretty. Here's another one. This person says, question, my son and I scanned the same book. He used the phone. I used the scanner with the same triggers and we got different results. Why? Again, you could look at these screens and a reptile could do this math. It would be, but you realize people they absolutely have zero comprehension of what's going on the screen, what these numbers mean at all. In fact, I don't even know if people that use triggers even know that the numbers in these columns represent prices. I mean, I don't know how you could know that and ask this question. It's very clear. There's different, the buy box price is different in these two. I mean, it's very clear there's different numbers between these two screenshots that explain why one says buy and one says reject, right? But again, people don't even know. I don't even think people know. A lot of people use triggers even know the triggers are editable. Like all you'd have to do if you want to know why something says reject, you could just go in the triggers and look at the criteria that you yourself set and then just compare it to what's on the screen. It should be very obvious. But I don't even think people who use triggers have any idea a majority of the time that you can even edit them, which is so terrifying, okay? Look at this one. This person says, hey, so I looked up this college book. Can someone explain, I guess they mean a textbook. Can someone explain what I'm missing? Why is it a reject? And the graph on the second picture looks decent. Again, you have somebody who, again, presumably set the triggers themselves or relied on the default triggers, who is asking, why is it saying reject? So again, this is what happens to a generation of sellers completely ruined by these triggers. And again, I could go on. You could just search for the word reject in any Facebook group where people are using apps that have the trigger feature. Again, I don't know every app that has this feature. And you'll just get an eyeful of just people just going, why does it say reject? It's like they're mystified. Like the data is literally right in front of you and people are just going, I can't understand why it says reject. It's like the data is literally in front of you. But again, it's hieroglyphics. It's Latin. They cannot read it because their IQ has been decimated by these triggers. You know, I would compare the problem here to, to cheating on like the LSAT to get into law school. Like, yeah, technically it's a shortcut, but guess what? It turns you into a terrible lawyer. So what's going to have the biggest long-term implications? It's going to be you being a terrible lawyer, right? Okay, you guys ready for the 4 reasons you should not use triggers? Some of these I've not even talked about yet. Okay, so top 4 reasons. Number 1, triggers only analyze the book halfway. I've not even talked about this one yet. So there's 2 ways to analyze books. There's 2 ways you have to analyze every single book. There's the quantitative and the qualitative. The triggers only do one. So here's an example. Let's say you've got 2 books. One's ranked 4 million, one's ranked 2 million. They both have the same value. And let's say your triggers say anything over worse than 3 million, it should reject. Okay, so you scan the 4 million book, it says reject. The triggers tell you to reject. The 2 million book, the triggers tell you to buy. Guess what? There are countless examples where the 4 million ranked book is actually a better purchase, a better investment than a 2 million ranked book. Here's an example. Let's say the book that's ranked 2 million is like a directory of water parks for people in the water park industry, okay? And let's say that directory comes out every single year. So every single year when a new one comes out, the sales rank for the other one falls off a cliff. Maybe this one's like published in the last year. And so it's a little bit newer or maybe in the last couple of years. So it's not totally obsolete yet. Okay, that's booked rank 2 million. That's the one your app's telling you to buy, even though it is going to be completely obsolete in another year or two. Okay, this is the qualitative I'm talking about. So your app's telling you to buy that one. The one it tells you to pass on, what if that was like a book on, the fundamentals of algorithms? A book that is selling consistently 3 or 4 times a year for decades on end. In other words, it's a very steady seller. Maybe not a high demand seller, but still a steady seller. That 4 million rank book is going to be a vastly better investment, a vastly better purchase than the book ranked 2 million. But guess what? Your app is telling you to reject the one ranked 4 million because it doesn't do the qualitative analysis. Number 2, your buying criteria is not static. Here's what I mean. Your buying standards change over time. Remember, all triggers are a reflection of your buying standards at that moment, right? And they change over time. So let's say you're having a really bad month and your standards are gonna get really, really conservative because you're struggling a little bit. Or maybe you're having a fantastic day. You just hit like an amazing source. And because you're making so much money that day, maybe you can afford to be a little less picky than you otherwise would and take some more risks on that particular day. Your triggers don't change with your buying standards. Now, sure, you could just say, well, you can just edit your triggers. Yeah, you can, but if you're going that far, like what is even the point of triggers? If you have to edit your triggers every single time your buying standards change, then it just becomes more of a liability than an asset. Your standards could change several times in a day. They could change several times a month. And you could avoid ever having to worry about changing your triggers if you just understood the fundamental skill of reading scanning app data and doing it instantaneously. Number 3 reason why you should stop using app triggers, it turns you into a low IQ zombie. If you use triggers, you're outsourcing your decision making to a computer and you never have to actually learn the business. Triggers have bred thousands, probably tens, if not hundreds of thousands of Amazon sellers who have outsourced the most basic comprehension to a computer and consequently have zero comprehension about anything other than buy or reject. A real Amazon seller, someone that actually is like interested in mastering the business, understands that every single time you scan an item, you learn just a little bit more about the principles that drive value. These are fundamental skills that you must understand to really excel in this business. Number 4 reason to stop using app triggers, this is actually the biggest one of all. You are simply missing profitable items. Your app, guaranteed with zero exceptions, is telling you to reject items that are actually profitable. And the reason for that is something called the FBA blind spot. The FBA blind spot is causing your app to give you false reject notifications and lots of them. The FBA blind spot is basically this. Any item that is not priced in the lowest 20 offers, in other words, you get an item for $1, $2, $3, the lowest 20 is invisible to your current, not just scanning apps, but it says we're pricing software on the screen here, but also your scanning app and any third-party software. Absolutely crucial that you understand this because most sellers don't even know this blind spot exists. That means you can have a blank column. The FBA column can be completely blank. And when you click over to Amazon, you will actually see numerous FBA offers that your scanning app was telling you did not exist. That is the FBA blind spot in action. And since FBA prices are usually priced higher than non-FBA offers and oftentimes outside the lowest 20, that means a huge percentage of FBA offers are invisible to all repricing tools and all scanning apps. This is not a conspiracy theory, okay? So this is a screenshot from Amazon's documentation for software developers that spells this out. This is buried deep in the fine print, but it's a very real thing. They refer to it as the top 20 offers, or they spell it explicitly here. Anything that's not in what they call the top 20 offers will not be shared, period. And a large percentage of FBA offers are not in that top 20. So in concrete terms, what this can mean for you is you scan an item and it shows you this, where the FBA column is blank, and it's telling you to reject the item. And when you actually click over to Amazon, you see something entirely different. You see FBA offers do in fact exist. And you should not have rejected this item. This is actually a profitable item. And you got a false reject notification because of the FBA blind spot. If you're out scanning books and you're scanning, let's say 500 books in a day, there's a very good chance that 50 to 100 of them showed no FBA offers when in fact there were FBA offers. This is a massive, massive problem that is quite literally costing you massive amounts of money. And so for that reason, everything else I mentioned, I think I made the case here that triggers are actually costing you money and they are no substitute for analyzing the data yourself. So the takeaway here, please consider all the pitfalls I've outlined here and reconsider the use of triggers in your scanning app. You can always reach out to me with any questions, peter@fbamastery.com. You now have a 3-part mission. Are you ready? Mission number 1, subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can build a whole business off of what I give away for free, but you've got to subscribe or you're going to miss stuff. Mission number 2, get all the free stuff you see here. Head over to fbamastery.com. There's a link below this video. Get all these free reports, free web classes, everything free, almost everything, fbamastery.com. Lastly, mission number 3, take what you learned in this video and put it into practice. This video is not for entertainment. This is for you to make money with. This is Peter Valley signing off, and I'll see you in the next video.